Let's graph the function of g of x, which is equal to negative 1/2 times x minus 2 squared plus 3. The parent function is x squared. The first transformation we need to consider is the horizontal shift. Let's look at x minus 2 squared. Using the parent function f of x, x minus 2 squared is equal to f of x minus 2. In terms of the equation for horizontal shift, k is equal to negative 2. So it means that we need to shift the function of x squared to the right by 2 units. Then we get the function of x minus 2 squared. Now let's call this function f of x. The second step is the vertical and horizontal stretch and shrink. The function g has 1 over 2 in front of x minus 2 squared, which is the function we considered in the step 1. 1 over 2 x minus 2 squared is equal to 1 over 2 times f of x. In terms of the equations for vertical and horizontal stretch and shrink, a is equal to 1 over 2. So the function f of x is shrunk vertically by a factor of 1 over 2. Let's call this new function f of x. The third step is the reflections across the x and y axis. We see the negative sign in front of 1 over 2 times x minus 2 squared, which is the function we consider in the step 2. Then negative 1 over 2 times x minus 2 squared is equal to negative f of x. So we reflect the function f of x across the x-axis. We get the function of negative 1 over 2 times x minus 2 squared. Again, let's call this new function f of x. The fourth step is the vertical shift. We see positive 3 attached to the function we consider in the step 3. Then negative 1 over 2 x minus 2 squared plus 3 is equal to f of x plus 3. In terms of the equation for vertical shift, k is equal to positive 3. So the function f of x is shifted upward 3 units. We get the function of negative 1 over 2 x minus 2 squared plus 3. And this is the function of g. Let's graph v of x is equal to negative square root of negative x plus 2. The parent function is square root of x. For the horizontal shift, we see that we have x plus 2 inside of square root. So we can write square root of x plus 2 is equal to f of x plus 2. K is equal to positive 2. it means that we need to shift the parent function square root of x to the left by 2 units. We get the function of square root of x plus 2. Let's call this f of x. The second step is vertical and horizontal stretch and shrink. The function v of x does not have any of these transformations, so the step 2 is none. The step 3 is the reflections across the x and y axis. We see that we have negative sign in front of x. So square root of negative x plus 2 is equal to f of negative x. We reflect the function f of x across the y-axis. We get the function of square root of negative x plus 2. Let's call this function f of x. Before we move on to the step 4, the function v of x also has a reflection across the x-axis. We see the negative sign in front of square root of negative x plus 2. Then negative square root of negative x plus 2 is equal to negative f of x. The function f of x is reflected across the x-axis to get the function of negative square root of negative x plus 2. Let's call this function f of x. The last step is vertical shift. The function v of x does not have a vertical shift, so the step 4 is none. So this is the graph of function v.